Hello my friends and welcome to a new video. In my last video I asked for some suggestions about subjects that I could use to make a video about, and one of those suggestions, they were all good, but one really stood out, and that was retro gaming. So I dove into the past and I tried to find a game which was really significant for our hobby of these days. That game, you saw the thumbnail, is OutRun. I think the goal of OutRun is very simple. You are in a beautiful car with a beautiful woman and you need to get to your destination. There are 5 different destinations in the game, and the path towards the destination can also vary. It is divided into different segments, and at the end of each segment there is a checkpoint where your time is prolonged to get to your destination, and you also need to make a choice at that moment to go left or right, and depending on that choice you will be led via different sceneries. The entire game features 15 different landscapes, each bursting with bright, flashy colors. You can race through everything from a sunny seaside town to wide open desert highways. Each destination even comes with its own unique ending scene, and many of them are surprisingly funny. It really adds to the light-hearted spirit that makes OutRun so memorable. To reach one of the 5 endings, you have to race through 5 consecutive stages. Every stage throws something different at you: sharp turns, roadside obstacles, and busy traffic. In arcade mode, the game can actually be quite challenging. When I was young, I could barely get past the first stage. But strangely enough, that didn't really matter. Of course, getting further than your friends was fun, but OutRun was never purely about competition. It was about the joy of driving. The feeling of cruising through beautiful scenery with the wind in your hair. Because of that philosophy, I like to think of it as the original sim tourist experience. So the game itself, it was released in 1986, and at first it was only available on in the arcades on those special arcade boxes. It was only later that the game got ported to the Sega Master System, and 2 years later in '89 that it got ported to PC. Now, when it was released in the arcades, there were 4 different versions of the game. 2 of the arcade cabinets were upright models, both equipped with a steering wheel, a gear shifter and 2 pedals. One version even included force feedback in the steering wheel, which was quite impressive for the time. But the real star of the show was the deluxe sit-down cabinet. This version featured a hydraulic motion system, force feedback steering, stereo speakers behind the player's head and a large 26-inch display. There was also a smaller sit-down cabinet that skipped the hydraulics but still included the force feedback wheel. So what made this game so popular? Well, start off with the car that you're driving, Ferrari Testarossa. It is one of the most iconic cars of the 90s. Look at this game, but also look at, for example, Miami Vice, which was a really popular series back then. So a very exotic car, very beautiful car, a car that a lot of people had on their a poster of on their wall next to Cindy Crawford in bathing suits. So yeah, that's already a good recipe to start a game. But it's not only that. For example, also what I really loved was at the beginning of the game you could choose your own music from 3 different channels, which was fantastic at that moment. On top of that, Sega turned the arcade cockpit into a real centerpiece. The deluxe cabinet in particular was a stunning machine with a futuristic design that immediately drew attention on the arcade floor. For visitors who loved cars, it was almost impossible not to stop and admire it. Today the gameplay might look simple, but at the time it introduced several clever mechanics. The crash system, for example, had different levels of accident, from a small bump to a full spin or even flipping the car completely. Each one would cost you an amount of precious speed and time. Going off the road slowed you down dramatically, and corners required careful braking because the game simulated the basic form of traction loss. You also had the shift gears. It was only a 2-speed gearbox, high and low, but the concept was the same as in real driving. Start in low gear to build momentum, then shift up. The hills and slopes even added more immersion, especially with the driver's low viewpoints. Altogether, the game brought several real driving concepts into an arcade format that was both accessible and surprisingly engaging. But the most important thing that they added to this game, and this is, it paved a bit the way towards the future, is that this was the first driving game that had force feedback in it. And that's phenomenal. Now, unfortunately, the version that I have here, it doesn't support the Logitech RS50, which I'm driving with, so that's a bit of a shame. But nonetheless, if you were in the arcade at that moment, you really had a steering wheel which moved if you went off the track, that you could feel the vibrations. So it's of course not the same as that we are used to these days. I mean, the force feedback at that moment, it was very crude, but it was there. So it was really a seller for the game also. You compare this with the fact that they made the deluxe version of OutRun, which was a complete cockpit also that moved. And that just made it a phenomenal game. When it comes to the image and sound, well, OutRun was also very progressive. Because of the use of Sega's superscalar technology, the gameplay looked surprisingly three-dimensional, which for 1986 was absolutely mind-blowing. And also when it comes to the music, it was a hit. The 3 songs that you could choose at the beginning of the race are considered by some as the best arcade music ever made. I don't know if I would go that far, but I was able to listen to Passing Breeze for an hour with ease. A last thing that I really liked about OutRun was that you were able to put your name in the end and have your high score in the arcade marked. So yeah, I really enjoyed driving in OutRun when I was young, and I think it also was a bit of a trendsetter for me to like more the games that came after, like a Gran Turismo, like Assetto Corsa, BeamNG also. So this is really, I would say, the game that started Sim Tourist at a very young age. OutRun was certainly not the most realistic simulator ever made, but in my opinion, it might be one of the most fun driving games ever created. I must have spent at least 500 Belgian francs on that arcade machine during my youth, and looking back, every single coin was worth it. For myself and many other players out there, OutRun wasn't just a racing game, it was a road trip, sun, music, and a Ferrari on an endless summer highway. I think Suzuki was really a visionary when it came to racing games, and I think also OutRun belongs really in the top 3 of the most influential racing games that there is out there, together with Gran Turismo, for example, also one very important game. The version of the game I use for this video is called Cannonball. It's a modern rewrite of the original OutRun arcade engine, but sticking to the original game. If you'd like to try it yourself, you can easily find it online. You'll still need an emulator and the original game files to run it though. Thank you all for watching. I hope you had something from this video. I wanted to ask you if you guys are also into retro gaming. Where do you get your games from? Because I looked on Steam, my main source of games for OutRun, for example, and it wasn't there. So if there is a special place where you can get these retro games, I would love to hear from you in the comments of this video. Have a good evening, and I will see you all next video. Bye bye.